What I'm asking you specifically is what is complete about complete friendship. And that requires an understanding of what the word complete means here. And it's definitely something that's not obvious. And so we're going to talk about that. And then the time we have remaining, if we've got any time, I want to talk a little bit about book 9, because he gets into these juicy situations dealing with actual real world relationships and many of the problems that we encounter in real world relationships. And I'll leave it at that. So questions about the exam. Why don't we start with Daniel? Daniel, you there?
Oh, yeah, Professor.
Question about the exam.
Yeah, so my first question was, I know you wanted us to cite obviously from the book specifically, but in the beginning of one paragraph, I used something that you had put in your PowerPoint. Should I just fix it in my own words, or
Yeah,
should
exactly. I would say just
okay,
please don't ever quote me to myself.
okay.
Maybe one day when I've written a great textbook, you can do that. But in the interim, just put it in your own words and
Okay,
make
no
sure you understand it from your own explanation of it. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
sure. Good question. Other questions about the exam?
Yes, Professor, let me,
Please.
that will help other. I know last week I asked you about the pages. Our confusion is when you say 1.5 pages, but I realized that like for the first question, it also have like A, B, C, and D. I mean, sorry, A, B, C, and A. That would be more than 1.5 pages.
Well, I mean, this has to do with how much I'm asking you to write on each part of the question. And in many cases, each part of the question, they're connected, right? So let me put it up for a second, because I've got it here. Share. Okay, so everybody can see that. So first question has to do with the cognitive revolution. Second part of it has to do with human language and symbolic thinking and how it's different from other animals. I mean, in fact, A and B are connected, because once you start talking about the cognitive revolution and what it really is specifically, you're getting into questions of symbolic thinking. Then the two central functions of language, right, which are discussed at length in the text, and I really isolate them in the PowerPoint, what I'm talking about there. The next two questions really have everything. When you start talking about those two central functions, you're going to then get into a discussion of the two different types of communities they create. And then this issue of the two function of language is actually just connected. It's really an extension of this concept of an imagined order, right? An imagined order comes out of one of the functions of language in particular. And it's also connected with this issue of the type of human community that that function creates. So let's put it this way. I'd like you to touch on everything that I've asked you about here, but these things are going to blend together to a certain degree, and you're going to emphasize certain aspects of the question more than others, right? And so when I say write a page and a half, I'm telling you to get to the meat and potatoes of precisely what you want to say about these things. And if a page and a half seems like not enough space for it, it means that you really want to focus on exactly what you need to say in order to answer the question as directly as possible. That said, I've said you have a latitude between about a page and a half and 2 pages for the answer. And I really don't want you to write any more than 2 pages maximum, because the idea here is that you're as direct as possible and as specific as possible in answering these questions. So the key thing here is don't just give me true facts from the text. What I want is facts that support explaining, answering these questions, right? It's two slightly different things. Does that help at all?
Oh, yes, that clarify everything.
Okay.
You.
Okay. And so part of the challenge of writing this is to try to say what you need to say in that amount of space. And I will say as a writer myself that it is much easier for me to write a lot than write a little and say the same amount, actually often say the same amount with that lesser amount. Candace. Why are we talking about Prometheus? So I had a little glitch online. I actually had posted a midterm for my other class, for my Baruch class. And I had emailed out the correct exam. And then I had some glitches with Blackboard in general. I had to get in touch with the person who helps out with Blackboard. And I had accidentally posted my exam for Baruch, not Lehman, for a brief period of time. So that questions about Prometheus do not apply to our exam. And if you've actually accidentally done work on Candace on that other exam, then I'll give you more time because that was a little mistake that I made. But I did email out our exam basically about almost 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago. Other questions?
So we only have to answer the questions, not making any thesis or introduction.
Okay, good question. So when you think of an essay, you normally think of introduction, body, conclusion, right? Introduction with thesis. So obviously the format is not, when I mean essay, I mean kind of two main things. That number one, you're writing in sentence paragraph form. You're using this as a guide, but you're leaving and you can use this as an outline to answer the questions. But the final answer that you provide is one continuous body of writing, an essay that has paragraph breaks to distinguish the key transitions from one topic to the next, right? Mm-hmm. And in a sense, for each of these, you're going to be providing a mini thesis, right? I mean, instead of one overall thesis for the entire thing, you're going to be, so if I ask you what the cognitive revolution is, you say the cognitive revolution is X, right? In a sense, that's like a mini thesis. And then you're going to say the cognitive revolution, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. What are the two functions of language? The two central functions of language are blank and blank. And then you provide some information explaining more specifically what they are, right?
So, Professor, we don't have to number them.
No.
Okay.
And so you should leave the entire question at the beginning of everything. And then below, you just provide your complete continuous answer without any letters or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
In one paragraph or separate paragraphs?
So like I said, the questions here are all kind of interrelated. And you are free to make your own judgments on where you should be breaking your paragraph in terms of ending one topic and moving to the next one. One thing that's crucial, I mean, I've provided some information on this, both in terms of my little writing document and also in terms of one of the videos, right? Obviously, sometimes I have students, they write the essay as one continuous paragraph. Well, that's definitely not the way you should write anything. You should be breaking up the core topics by paragraph. How you do that, where exactly you think those paragraph breaks should fall is up to you. Obviously, the parts of the question provide a guideline for that. But I mean, this is something you need to do as a writer. You make a judgment about where you feel like you've concluded one topic and start the next, right? I mean, what is a sentence? In terms of concepts, a sentence represents one thought. What is a paragraph? A paragraph is a series of thoughts, AKA a series of paragraphs that all have to do with the same theme or the same topic. They're all related in a certain way. So once you're shifting to a sufficiently different topic, you should be starting a new paragraph.
Mm.
Okay.
Other questions?
So another quick question I had was
Yes.
so obviously C and D are kind of together. For E, about the imagined order, and then the first part of that, they also ask about how does the concepts relate to the functions? It's basically the same ones that you had mentioned before, right? That we mentioned before in C and D, the functions.
Yes. So when I ask about how does this concept relate to the functions of language, I'm absolutely talking about the ones being asked about in C and D. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Because let me just, I mean, an imagined order is connected with one of those functions.
Right.
It is a product of one of those functions.
Okay.
It's a good question. Other questions? Candace, I got your message. You know what? Could you do this right now? Could you email me at my email address? With that email address or from that email address?
Okay, I will.
Oh, that's to Kenya. That's not going to work. I'll just put it to everyone. But in any case, I've updated the exam. So if you go back to the exam folder, it's the correct exam now.
Oh, by the way, Professor, I had emailed you the pictures of my books, by the way.
Yes, I'm going to be getting back to people on attendance and books tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just review really quickly. We talked about these preconditions of friendship that I'm really kind of making really clear from things Aristotle says that he doesn't always say in the clearest way. I mean, the thing he really focuses on and as a necessary precondition of friendship at the beginning of book 8 is goodwill, right? This kind of openness and sufficient trust between two people that actually allows them to initiate a relationship at all, right? Let me ask this without going over these, because we've already talked about them and there's all kinds of information provided. When we talk about preconditions for friendship, what does that really mean? What does it mean that something is a precondition for friendship or even just any type of human relationship? What do we mean by that?
The feelings.
Nothing to do with feelings necessarily.
Sorry, what was the question again?
What does it mean for something to be a precondition for any type of human relationship? If it's a
like,
precondition, it's what?
Requirements?
Requirement for what?
Um,
Yeah, requirement. Perfect. Perfect.
Like what you're kind of expecting, I guess.
Mm.
It could be something you're expecting, but it's even more basic than that.
Okay.
It's a requirement for what about the relationship? Let's put it this way. The first one I have listed here is lack of self-sufficiency, right? To be self-sufficient is to be what?
be able to provide yourself without needing anyone's help.
Yeah, if we were self-sufficient, would we be engaging in relationships with other people?
No.
Yeah. So, which is to say, a precondition is a kind of a necessary requirement that establishes the conditions for there to be a relationship at all. Doesn't matter what kind of relationship, could be complete friendship, could be friendship based on utility or pleasure, what have you. But if you don't have these basic things to some degree, you're going to have no reason to be engaged or no ability to be engaged with another human being. So that's what we mean by preconditions, requirements that that mean people are going to have a reason to be involved with one another and a reason to maybe stay involved. Mutual admiration, that's a pretty fancy one. I can imagine a lot of human relationships that do not require mutual admiration. Here, notice the word I'm using. I'm not using complete friendship or true friendship. I'm just using human relationship, any type of interaction, right? Okay. So in a moment, what I want to get into detail is focusing on complete friendship and what is exactly exchanged and what it's all about. Let me just come back to this. One of the things, and when we read, this is going to become really clear that we've talked about now at length, Luis, yes, is that Aristotle conceives of all human relationships, including friendships, as a form of exchange. And we've talked about it at great length, the different types of things that might be exchanged. And we notice very clearly that the three types of friendship, complete, pleasure, and utility, they're actually defined by the type of good that's exchanged in them. In utility, useful things are exchanged. And when Aristotle uses the word useful or utility, he's talking about a specific type of use. He's talking about things that are useful in terms of the basic necessities of life. So when you think of economics and economic exchange of goods, money, commodities, things of that sort, labor, right? You are talking about all of the economy deals with relationships of utility. So any type of economic relationship, like working for a boss, so on and so forth, going and buying something at a store, this is relationship based on utility, right? So what types of goods are exchanged in relationships based on pleasure? Well, some form of pleasure. Of course, we have to keep in mind there are pleasures of the body, but there are also pleasures of the soul. Then, of course, in complete friendship, he talks about these are the three things that are lovable, and they turn out to be the three things that people exchange in these three different types of relationships. So obviously in the complete friendship, the good is exchanged, not just a good, but the good, something that is truly beneficial to the other person. And I think we're going to say it contributes to their happiness in some way. So that's one big aspect of relationships here, that they're defined. I want to make that go away. There we go. They're defined by exchange, right? And I've got these arrows because the exchange has to be reciprocal. It has to go both ways, from one person to the other and from the other person back. Otherwise, there's not going to be a relationship. If exchange breaks down, the relationship itself breaks down and disappears. The other thing we talked about is that in the first two forms of friendship, utility and pleasure, that it has to do with an intention or a motive behind why you're making the exchange, why you're interacting with the other person. And the key thing is we distinguish between treating the other person as a means versus treating the person as an end or for their own sake, right? And well, let me ask this. What does it mean to treat someone as a means rather than an end?
Like you use someone to achieve what you want.
Awesome. You use the other person to achieve what you want. And the key thing here is what you want is not them, but what they have to offer you that's sufficiently independent from who they are as a human being. In particularly, he's going to talk about their character, right? So what's another name for a means? What's a synonym? Someone who is a means is what? What other word could you use to substitute?
Benefits? Can it be benefits?
Well, look, all three relationships, you're getting some kind of benefit. You're getting something you want.
Is it like a way?
Yeah, a means is a way, or I mean, I think last class we talked about you're treating them as a tool. You're treating them as an instrument to get what you want.
Yes.
Right? You're not really directly concerned with them at all. Yeah, the end is the thing you want. The Greek word is telos. The telos is the goal, the thing you desire. And the irony here in this relation, these lower two forms of relationship is what you really want is not them. And here's the funny thing. They may think that when you exchange with them in this way that you actually do want them for themselves, but it turns out you don't. And that's when we really get into real life and some of the problems of relationships, when people misunderstand the nature of the exchange. Oh, he's in love with me. Oh, he's not really in love with me. He just wanted this from me. And now the scales have fallen from my eyes, like in the money, and I can see what's really going on. But at the beginning, because I really wanted to be loved by someone, I thought that they were into me for me, and it turned out not to be the case. I mean, that is such a kind of classic conundrum that all human beings are challenged with in relationships. Aristotle says, the desire to be in friendship arises quickly, but the reality of friendship does not. And when he says that, he's saying that we all want to be loved. We all want to be in this relationship. We want to be loved for who we are. But the problem is finding another human being who really wants to do that to you is a great challenge, right? And it's not easy for a whole bunch of interesting reasons.
Right.
So when you're a means, the person is only using you as a means to an end, the thing they want, and it's not you. So when they give you the object, let's say this person gives you the object, they're only giving you the object, whatever it is, with an eye to what you're going to give back to them. And that's the only reason they're really giving it, not to be nice to you, not to help you out, but really for self-interest. I mean, every relationship has its degree of self-interest, but here it manifests in a way in which you're only concerned for the other person to the extent that you get what you want from them, which is not them. And the moment you've gotten what you need and you no longer need it, what happens?
The friendship will come to an end.
Yes, the word Aristotle uses, the relationship dissolves. And he says it's perfectly natural for the relationship to dissolve, especially when it's based on things like utility and pleasure. Like, think about how silly it would be. I always use this dumb example, but I go to buy a coffee at Starbucks and the barista talks to me because I'm ordering and she's taking my money. And that's maybe the only reason she's talking to me. But if I try to stand there for the next 3 hours trying to talk to her, thinking that she talked to me because she really wanted to know me as opposed to just do the transaction, like I'm fooling most of the time you'd be fooling yourself, right? They're only talking to you because they're engaging in the exchange of utility. And I would be in that situation misunderstanding why they're talking to me in the first place. Okay, so one of the fundamental differences with a complete friendship is that the exchange happens under a slightly different premise, which is that I give something to the other person, and in doing so, I'm treating them as an end in themselves. I'm concerned with them as the end of my actions. I'm actually concerned with their character. And Aristotle points out that when you really care about another human being, the thing you care about is not the stuff they have, it's not the physical pleasure you take from them, it's your engagement with their character, who they are, on, you could say, a moral and intellectual level. And when you give to them, you give them a gift. And we said, how would we define what a gift is? And here I don't mean an example of a gift, but the very concept of what a gift is, generally speaking. When you give a gift, what's your intention behind giving it?
You
Getting
give something
something
without
back.
accepting something back.
I'm sorry, Mama Kadi, could you say that one more time? I think I got it, but I wasn't sure.
You give something, but you don't expect that they give it to you back.
Absolutely. The general concept of a gift is that you're giving something to someone else with no clear expectation of getting something in return. Whereas the other two forms are predicated on you only give the thing to them with the understanding that you're going to get back what you want.
Mm.
Now, at first glance, this sounds very selfless, or the word is altruistic, that you're doing something that's not based on your self-interest, but you're doing something purely and solely as an act of kind of charity for the benefit of the other person. Now, you are doing it with an eye to their benefit because you like them for who they are. And this is also going to turn out that they're going to be a good person. And in complete friendship, I mean, Aristotle makes a really bold claim that a lot of modern people, and probably many of you, would not agree with, that the only people who can really be a true friends or complete friends are people who are decent human beings who have moral, if not intellectual virtue, right? Because the whole idea here is you're liking them for who they are. And if they're good, of course, human beings naturally like that which is good. So you would like it. So how could it possibly make sense that you would like someone for their own sake if they were bad? And of course, Aristotle's going to get into the problem that in real life, human beings are a mixture of good and bad, vice and virtue. And that creates some interesting problems. Okay. However, it sounds like an act of charity and selflessness, right? But there is going to be one major benefit you are going to get in this exchange of complete friendship, a major benefit. And the benefit's going to come to you, interestingly enough, without the other person giving you anything back in return. I'm not saying they're not going to do it. So here's the funny thing about gifts. Do we really believe that when we give someone a gift, we don't expect something in return? I know I expect something in return when I give gifts to people, but it's done in a different way than when you buy a coffee, right? You don't say to the person, yo, I just gave you a gift. You better give me something back. Well, some people may do that, but we know that's not the proper etiquette with a gift. You do hope that they recognize what you've done for them, and at some later point, they do it back for you. Right? So like, for example, my best friend, we've known each other for, it's 2022. We've known each other for 23 years now. And I mean, he does things for me. I do things for him. I don't know that our bank accounts are perfectly balanced. We offer different types of things to each other in terms of helping each other out. But it's kind of understood that, like, you know, when someone calls up and is in a situation or whatever, that the other person is going to listen and help out. And it's just kind of what happens. And there's even a sense of obligation at a certain point because of, you know, kind of extended time around each other, going through the ups and downs of life and some such. So the question now is, well, let's go back to this chart. In friendship of utility, what's exchanged? Let's just go through this. What kind of object is exchanged? That's not a trick question. That's simple.
Physical things.
Could be. More generally, they're what? Things that are,
useful.
yeah, useful. And so now useful, 2 examples.
Uh,
What's useful to our basic needs of everyday life? Remember, the family comes together to satisfy everyday needs. Friendship based on utility satisfies some basic everyday needs.
yeah. I'll pay money and then I'll take coffee.
Okay, sure.
Mm.
So you get, you give your labor to the boss and they pay you, or you pay the you pay the barista and they give you coffee.
Yeah.
Favors, yeah. So favors are a big one. So imagine you've got a coworker, or you've got a fellow student, like, oh, I was out last week. Can you give me your notes? And when you're sick, I'll give you mine. Things like that. Is the relationship stable or unstable? And this is also obviously connected with its length.
It's unstable.
Unstable.
Good. So that also means,
Unstable.
how long is it going to last?
Oh, it's just a transient of time.
So a short period of
Right.
time. And then the question is why? Why is this relationship unstable and relatively short?
Because you may need it for just that period of time. after-
Perfect. Your needs get satisfied, then your needs change, and the necessity of that other person becomes mooted. They're not necessary anymore. And then the
Right.
question becomes, what is going to attach you with that person? It's totally possible that you start out in a relationship based on utility and move up to complete friendship at some later point, right?
Mhm.
But if that happens, that means other things are being exchanged and the relationship is changing, which of course Aristotle recognizes in book 9. So the reason it's unstable and it doesn't last long is because it's not about you, it's about what you offer. And once you've provided it, they may not need it anymore, right? Or their needs just change, which actually is kind of the same thing. So the person is treated as a means, that's pretty clear. And then we would say it's therefore incomplete. And this gets to this question of what does it mean to be complete, which we got to figure that out. So we'll come back to that. Are the people more like or unalike?
Yeah, they are unlike.
What could they be? Could they be like, or could they be unalike in this relationship?
Is it the complete or which one?
No, I'm still talking about utility here.
Oh, utility.
We're just going, if you can see my cursor, I'm just going right down the line here.
I can't see it, that's why.
Okay, so, I mean, the people could be like, but because of the nature of this relationship, they can be very different and still be involved in this relationship, right? So, I mean, Aristotle opens up book 8 with some discussion about, do opposites attract, or do people that are the same come together? And, what is the kind of more, what is the better relationship, or what's the physics there that's going to lead to a more permanent type of relationship? And what is his answer to that question ultimately about what's better, being like or unalike? He does give an answer to it. It's not obvious, but he definitely gives an answer. What dynamic is going to lead to more, let's say, commitment or solidarity in relationships? People being like or unalike?
Like.
Yes, people being more like one another.
Like.
And we have to answer the question of why that is in a moment. But when you think about why is it the case that people in a relationship based on utility can be so different, and the relationship still functions, despite the fact that he argues that being like is better for a relationship, generally speaking? How is it that people in friendship based on utility can be so darn different and the relationship still operates?
Yeah, the relationship operates because you still need that particular thing.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
and the thing you need is not what? The thing you care about is not what?
It's not long term.
That's true. You already know the answer to this. Do you care about the other person?
No,
To what extent do you care about them in this relationship?
to the extent of the time, that particular time that you need the thing.
Yeah, and also like the fact that they can provide it,
Right.
right? Which is kind of the same thing said in a different way. So why do I care in this relationship? Why do I care about the other person? I care about their ability. I don't care about them directly, except I care about their ability to
Provide.
okay, I said to provide what I want, right?
Yeah.
So therefore that person can be really different from me. And so long as they provide that thing, it doesn't matter how different they are, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we go up to pleasure. So the object of exchange is pleasure, and we can talk about both pleasures of the body and pleasures of the soul. And he gives an interesting he eventually talks about like young people falling in love and how they're falling in love like erotically has a lot to do with just their passions, their fleeting passions, and from one day to the next they're constantly changing and things like that. And it's some combination of physical attraction and something emotional. But he also talks about like someone being witty, which is just like they're funny, they're humorous, they make you laugh, but you like the fact that they're pleasing because they make you laugh, but you're not really quite concerned with them, right? So this, I don't know, like a class clown, like they're doing something goofy in class and they make you laugh, but like you don't exactly like them for who they are. They just happen to be amusing, right? So Aristotle makes this distinction here. And so we can just run through all of this and say all these issues are exactly the same as friendship based on utility, with the only difference being a difference in the object of exchange, which is now pleasure of some kind, pleasure of the body, or to say pleasure of the soul is to say like you take some type of emotional satisfaction from it. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel contented. But remember, feeling contented in that way is not Aristotle's understanding of happiness. Here's an interesting one. Can I be in a relationship based on utility, but the other person be in a relationship with me based on pleasure?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And this is an interesting conundrum we discover in book 9, that one person enters the relationship seeking the useful. I just want to use the other person for something I need. Whereas the other person could come into the relationship hoping, I hope this person likes me for who I am.
Mhm.
And the only relationship where you like someone for who they are is which one?
Is the end.
Is complete friendship. Yes, will you like them as an end in themselves? The only one where that exists is complete friendship.
Right.
Right? So, I always use this example of friends with benefits, like perfectly fits with this friendship based on pleasure, because what the person wants is the pleasure that they can get. And the deep irony of the friends with benefits is the pleasure comes from contact with your body. So it seems like they want you, but it turns out they really don't. They don't care about all of you, the part of you that matters, your character, your kind of psychic identity. They just want the pleasure that comes from what you can physically offer, which is not the same. But of course, in the reality of it, it's very confusing because those things are not always clear to distinguish from one another. So, I mean, here's another thing that in friendships based on pleasure, well, one reason they're very unstable and change is because people have desires for things, could be sexual, could just be emotional, could be all kinds of things. And the desire comes into existence, it gets satisfied, and then you're done. Aristotle gives examples of like, think about teenagers. I mean, every day of the week, a teenage boy could fall in love with a different girl just by looking at her and find her appealing, right? And it's just like whoever happens to be in front of him at a moment, you know, when he's kind of intoxicated by his hormones or what have you, that person becomes the object of desire, right? And there's no kind of deeper necessity to it. So these things change all the time, they're based on emotions. And Aristotle has this whole vision of emotions as just things that are constant, like impulses, instincts, animal impulses and instincts that are constantly being generated within you and constantly changing, right? So you treat the person as a means, the relationship's incomplete. We'll get to that. And then, of course, you know, the people can be very unalike. And we haven't mentioned equality, but the people can be unequal, right? I mean, Aristotle entertains like relationships between mothers and children, kings and citizens, and masters and slaves. Like, can they possibly have a relationship? And one thing that happens is when a relationship is very unequal, the person who's at the bottom of the totem pole has to give more to the other person to compensate for their own unequal status, right? It's like if you're in middle school and the geeks and the nerds show up at the cool people's party, right? The geeks and the nerds have to they have to provide some offering to the cool people for them to be able to stay at the cool people's house because the cool people don't want to be associated with them. And that's what it's like, middle school politics. Okay. Complete friendship for 1,000. What exactly is exchanged in complete friendship? It's obviously not a physical thing.
Hi, Professor. Yeah,
The goods,
take a shout out.
Charity?
Yeah, I think nothing is exchanged in complete friendship because I think both friends have similar character and they don't need anything from anybody. And
You know, you've stumbled into a big problem of the ethics when you get into book 10 about this question. But if you had all that stuff, you wouldn't be in a relationship to begin with. And we've all said that relationships are dependent on need, human need. And if we have needs, that means we enter into some form of exchange to get what we need. And we get what we need. And since the other person is helping us out, we give them something back in return as reciprocal. So there definitely has to be an object of exchange.
Okay.
So Mamikati says the good, and I absolutely agree, but we have to put some meat on the bone of that. Kenya says wisdom, the little spelling, but wisdom, and I definitely agree. But there's something, it's along those lines that's more basic.
they help each other living virtuously.
I'm sorry?
They like the friends, they help each other to live virtuously.
They have each other to live virtuously. Could you explain? You're on the right track here. Do you want to, can you add a little bit to that or explain what you mean? They have each other. What do you mean by have? Like, what do they do in relationship to living virtuously? What do they exchange? What's the relationship between them being around each other and being or living virtuously? Yeah, the exchange has got to be equal in some way, shape, or form. That goes for all of the relationships, though. Let me ask you this. This will become more clear. When you act in a morally virtuous way,
Mhm.
what does that involve? If you act with moral virtue, if you do the right thing, what does that involve generally, without even giving a specific example?
So is it like a cordial relationship?
It certainly would be. I think it would be even more than that, though.
You are not
When you
enemies.
perform, when you perform a deed of moral virtue, what are you doing essentially?
The right thing, like doing the right. the
Yeah,
right-
and what does it mean to do the right thing? In relationship to what?
Something good.
That's true. How should I say this?
But the intellectual sort of.
We'll get to the intellectual part of it. Actually, I think that one's maybe easier. Moral virtue consists of what kind of acts? Are they just like, are these acts or actions just done in the abstract? We got to put faith aside here because there's no faith in Aristotle.
The moral theory.
When you perform an action that's morally virtuous, are you the only person involved typically in it? I know we haven't talked about the specific moral virtues that are cited by Aristotle in the books we haven't covered because it's too much. Let's go back to the Republic. Instead of using the word moral virtue, let's use the word just, because justice is a moral virtue. When you do something just, is that just doing something just in the abstract? Like, who's involved when you perform an act of justice? Is it just you?
No.
You or your friend.
You want to say that again, Luis?
You or your friend.
Yeah. When you perform an act of moral virtue, you're not just doing it kind of like in a vacuum. It can be the case that it's toward yourself. There's no doubt about that. But it's almost always by definition, acting morally or righteously is in relationship to other people. If we were in the biblical world here, it would be like, it could be toward God too. But there's no discussion of Aristotle of issues of faith in this book, virtually at all. So what an act of moral virtue is done to another human being, right? It's, if you're just with another human being. If you exhibit the virtue of friendliness, you're exhibiting that virtue toward another human being. If you're liberal or magnanimous, or what are some of them? He has truthfulness as a virtue. If you're truthful, you're virtuous toward another human being, right? Let me ask again now. What is the object of exchange in complete friendship? Let's do this. I am going to find a volunteer to read. You know what? And we're going to start here. And we're going to kind of back up and run through his discussion of the three forms that will set us up. We still don't have a clear understanding of what is exchanged in complete friendship. And then we got to figure out what is meant by complete. When you understand what is exchanged in complete friendship, you will understand its relationship to Aristotle's concept of happiness very quickly. Could I have a volunteer to read for us, please? Starting with chapter 3 here.
Yes, Professor, can I read?
There you go for it. Awesome.
Just give. So from chapter 3, right?
Yes.
These things differ in form from one another. So therefore do both the kinds of friendly love and the friendship that result. The form of friendship then are 3, equal in number to the things that are lovable. In accord with is a reciprocal love that does not go unnoticed. And those who love each other wish for the good things for each other in that respect in which they loved each other.
Okay. So there are 3 forms of friendship equal in number to the 3 things that are lovable. What are the 3 things that are lovable? The things that are lovable are the good, the pleasant, and the useful in chapter 2. And he says that it's a reciprocal love. And he says that these relationships, the love does not go unnoticed, meaning that both people have to see the gesture of the person and recognize and acknowledge it for the exchange to work. Perhaps people are familiar with situations where they extended their own warmth and intimacy to another person and it was not recognized. And because it was not recognized, there was no reciprocation. Everybody familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what in his own funny way, that's what Aristotle's talking about here, especially in book 9. All right, you want to keep going, Rukeya?
Yeah. Those who love each other on account of utility then do not love each other in themselves.
Okay,
but
let's
on
go. And I don't want to do this too often. People who love on account of utility do not love each other in themselves, which is mean they don't love the other person as for their own sake or as an end in themselves. They only love them as a means for the thing that they give them, right?
to achieve their their needs, right?
Absolutely, whatever the need happens to be.
Mhm.
That the good that's provided them from the other person. Yep.
Okay. But only insofar as they come to have something good from the other. Similar to is the case of those who love on account of pleasure, for people are fond of those who are witty, not because they are of a certain sort, but because they are pleasant to them.
Okay.
Therefore,
So he says that you relationships based on utility and pleasure have something in common, which is to say the other person is treated as a means and not as an end. And he says someone who is loved for being witty is loved for the pleasure they provide, but not for the, he says, not because they are of a certain sort. What he means here is they're not loved because of the sort of person they are, which is to say they're not loved because they're a good person of decent character. When we look at complete friendship, the other person will be loved for who they are. A person performing moral virtue to you is by definition a virtuous person, which means by definition they have a good character. They are a decent human being, right? Okay, you want to keep going, Rukeya?
yeah. Therefore, those who love on account of utility feel affection for the sake of their own good, just as those who love on account of pleasure feel affection for. Professor, I think we should go to next page. Yeah.
Yep.
But complete friendship is the friendship of
Oh,
those. Oh, yeah.
Other page, left side.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The sake of their own pleasure. He who is loved in each case is not loved for himself, but only insofar as he is useful or pleasant.
All right, let's pause. Everybody should understand that now. He or she who is loved in each case of utility and pleasure is not loved for themselves, but only insofar as they are useful or pleasant, right? Because they're simply a means to provide utility or pleasure. Okay, you keep going?
And this then are friendships incidentally, for it is not for being what he is that the person loved is loved, but only insofar as he provides something good or pleasure.
Okay, he says, and these, okay, what does he mean by these? What does the pronoun these refer to? It refers to friendships based on utility or pleasure. He says, and these relationships then are friendships incidentally. And I think what he really means is they're not really true friendships at all. They're just a lower form of relationship, right? They appear to be friendships because people act in a cordial manner to one another, right? Which is, we engage in all types of relationships where we engage in a friendly way to someone. That doesn't mean we're friends with them. It's a big difference. And why is that? Because in this relationship, your concern is not directly for the other person and who they are. That's not what's lovable. The thing that's lovable, what's lovable is what you get from them, independent of who they are. All right, we've kind of established that. Thank you, Rukia. Could I have another volunteer read for us, please?
You're welcome, Professor.
Daniel, do you think you could read for us?
Yep, sorry. A little small. If
I can make it a little bigger, and maybe you got to make it a little bigger. These sorts of friendships then are easily dissolved.
Okay, these sorts of friendships are easily dissolved when the people involved do not remain the same as they were. For if they are no longer pleasant or useful, those who love them will will cease to do so. And what is useful does not remain constant, but is different at different times.
Okay,
When
so let's be clear. These relationships dissolve. We've talked about that already. They're unstable. They don't last for a long time. And he says, because the people do not remain the same. Now, what does he mean by the people don't remain the same? He says that later on. He says that what is useful does not remain constant, but is different at different times. Can anyone explain what he means by that? What is useful does not remain constant, but is different at different times.
Yeah, it's like what may be useful for me today may not be tomorrow. So I'm
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what changes. It's not so much the person themselves, but what they need. And we could use an even a simpler word, that which is useful. We just say what we need today is different from what we need or are gonna need tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And so the moment our needs shift or the need is satisfied and it doesn't need to be met anymore, the relationship ends. Does Aristotle think there's anything bad about this relationship ending? Should we shed a tear?
no,
I'm sorry?
no.
No, because this is life, right? This is every day this happens. You get a new job, you go to a new school, you're in a new classroom. You know, there are all these constant needs that have to be addressed, and you get them satisfied by the people around you at the moment, and then the needs change, and then you've got different people around you to deal with the next challenge, right? This is like, it's business kind of stuff. All right, Daniel, you want to keep going?
Yeah, no problem. When that on the basis of which they were friends is
Nullified.
nullified, then so to the friendship is dissolved. Since the friendship exists with a view to the thing in question, this sort of friendship seems to arise especially among the old. Sorry, it's kind of small. I'm having trouble. Uh, for those for those of such an age, pursue not what is pleasant, but what is beneficial to them, as well as among all those in their prime, or the young who pursue what is advantageous, sorry, advantageous.
What is advantageous? And that's just a synonym for what is useful.
Okay. Continue.
Yes, please.
Okay. And such people do not frequently live with each other either, for sometimes they are not even pleasant to each other. They therefore have no additional need of this sort of association if they supply no benefit to the other, for they are pleasant to each other only in so far as they for sorry, it's kind of blurry, as they foster hopes of obtaining something good from from the other. It is also among these sorts of friendships that people place the kind connected with foreigners.
All right, can you read the next paragraph? And then I'll pick on someone else.
But the friendship of the young seems to be based on pleasure, for they live according to passion, and most of all pursue what is pleasant to them at to them and at hand. But since this time of life is prone to undergoing change, the pleasures to come to be different. Hence, the young swiftly become friends and cease being so. The friendship changes together with what they find pleasant, and change in the sort of pleasure is swift.
Okay, so I think he's probably talking about like teenagers here. And maybe as you get into your 20s, but teenagers. So the idea is that, you know, all your relationships are driven by your kind of emotional reaction to people or your desire for them, one or the other, and that the emotions of a teenager, let's say, are very fickle. What does that word mean, fickle? Does anyone know that word?
It's like undecided, go back and forth, just unsettled, I guess.
Absolutely. Capricious. They change all the time. One minute they really know that they're in love with this, and then the very next minute they're off as if the other thing never existed and they're now wanting the other thing, right? We know what kids are like. They don't know their own bloody minds, right? And they're just acting on their impulses, right? So these relationships are initiated very quickly, and they feel on this all this passion, and they dissipate as the relationships dissolve as quickly as the passions dissipate, right? And you know, so the argument he's going to make is, I mean, this is natural to someone of this age. He's not saying there's anything really wrong with it, but one thing he wants is relationships that are durable, and relationships that are durable have to come from a durable source. And for him, ultimately, it's going to be one's character rather than one's spontaneous emotions, right? And what you're going to like in complete friendship of the other person is their character. And it's not just going to be an emotional reaction to them. It's going to be something that is a mixture of reason and emotion. Your character is the result of your moral training, right? And the one thing about one's character is that it's something that's built up over a long period of time. And he describes one's character as being stable once you reach a certain point. And just like any human being, after you reach a certain age, 20s, 30s, 40s, at some point, who you are, what you're about, what your goals are, becomes solidified, right? And so what you pursue in life becomes more consistent and less changeable. And you start using your reason to calibrate, what relationship seems appropriate and what you're seeking in the relationship and who it's with and so on and so forth. Okay, Daniel, you want to finish up the paragraph?
Yeah. Just trying to make it bigger here.
What are you on your phone?
No, I'm on my computer, but like I couldn't like figure out how to make it bigger. Okay. The okay. The young are given to erotic love as well, for the greater part of erotic love is bound up with passion and is based on pleasure, which is why they love, and swiftly cease loving, often changing in the course of the same day, but the young to do
Yeah, let's
wish.
just pause right here. So he's talking here about, erotic love or sexual desire.
Yeah.
And this could be like actually wanting to sleep with someone, or it could just be all those feelings that well up. I don't know. They look at a boy or look at a girl and go, oh my goodness, like they're so amazing, whatever it is. And he just says like, the whole problem with this, is this enjoyable, erotic love? He doesn't condemn it. You have to understand his position here. He's not saying pleasure is bad. He's saying it's not the ultimate foundation for a real relationship. It may well be part of a complete friendship, but a complete friendship is going to have other things that are more durable than fleeting passions. Think about this. If you're going to marry someone and be with them for the rest of your life, if your relationship is simply based on how they look and I don't know, other physical attributes, what happens when you get older and it's 30 years later and they don't look like that anymore? What is going to be the foundation for maintaining your commitment to them?
Mhm.
It's a basic challenge. So let's just keep in mind that while he kind of subordinates, here he's talking about physical and emotional pleasure. He's not condemning it as sinful or anything like that. He's fitting it in his hierarchy, and it has a certain place, and it's not at the top, which kind of makes sense to anybody who has got a little sense in their life. I'm sorry. You want to finish up, Daniel? I think I stepped on you there a little bit.
Yeah, at the last sentence. But the young do wish to pass their days together and live together, for in this way they attain what friendship of them involves.
Okay, great. Could I have one more volunteer read for us, please? Thank you, Daniel. Excellent job.
No problem.
I'll go.
Who's that?
Ashley.
Awesome.
In point, is that where I'm starting?
Top of page 168.
But complete friendship is the friendship of those who are good and alike in a point of virtue.
Okay, let's just pause here. So we need to figure out some things about complete friendship. And now he's going to really focus on complete friendship. Why is that? Because this is the friendship that really is friendship. And you have to remember the Greek word for friendship is philia. Philia is often translated in English as love. So the boundary between love and friendship for Aristotle is not a simple one. In fact, they're connected with one another. But the key thing about friendship is it's love in the sense that it doesn't necessarily imply sexual attraction, although of course it could be involved. Daniel.
Yeah. So that's funny that you said philia, because I actually had a question about that, about the test. So in question two, you asked about that. You said friendship or affiliate. So we have to talk about either or both is fine.
Well, I mean, first of all, the word friendship you see here is the Greek word philia, but sometimes, for example, it's translated as love.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. So down
So it's
here,
basically the same thing.
you know, why they love, right? That could just be that's the word philia, right? So I guess the word we could use is it's like what we would call platonic love. It doesn't have to involve physical attraction at all, but it may well involve it. But physical attraction would not be the primary element of philia, at least in terms of complete friendship. It's literally love of who the other person is, loving them for who they are, right? And the Greeks have a separate word for down here on page, around line, what is it for, 2 or 3 here, erotic love. The Greeks have a separate word for that type of love, and they call it eros. Sorry, let me get rid of this silliness on here. How do I make it go away? There we go. Okay, so we need to figure out complete friendship. So Ashley, just 1 second. So, but complete friendship is the friendship of those who are good. What does he mean by those who are good? It's not complicated, but let's just be clear. For Aristotle, people who are good are what? What do they have?
Have a moral virtue.
Yes, absolutely. They are virtuous. They have good character, right? And they are alike in point of virtue. They are alike in terms of virtue. They both have what kind of character?
Similar.
Yeah, and specifically what kind of similar?
Good.
Yes, good character. They're morally, and we're also going to say intellectually virtuous. What's another way of saying moral and intellectual virtue? They are excellent human beings, as Aristotle understands it. And what is his implicit thesis here? He's actually going to claim that the only type of people who can truly be friends are people who are of good character. Because why would you love someone that's not good, right? Because he's talking about a very specific type of love. He certainly can imagine you have an emotional attachment to someone who's not good, but that's different from the type of love he's describing here. All right. So notice, in complete friendship, the people are not just alike, but they're most alike of all the other relationships. And they're alike in a very specific way. They both have good characters or are virtuous human beings. All right, Ashley, you want to keep going?
Yes. Okay.
For such people.
Okay. For such people wish in similar fashion for good things for each other insofar as they are good, and they are good in themselves.
Okay, so here they wish good things for the other person, whereas in the other relationship, you're only ever wishing good things for yourself, right? You keep going?
But those who wish for the good things for their friends' sake, are friends most of all, since they are disposed in the way in themselves and not incidentally. Their friendship continues then while they are good, and virtue is a stable thing. Each person involved is good simply and for the friend, since good people are good simply and beneficial to one another.
Okay, let's pause. He says this relationship is a stable thing. Well, he actually says virtue is a stable thing, which is a little bit different. This relationship is going to be stable and last for a long time. The question is why? And there's 2 answers to it that are connected. Why is this type of relationship going to last for a long time? Let me ask this. What do you think he means when he says virtue is a stable thing? Or virtue is a stable thing in a human being?
Yeah, it's like when you are good to your friend, the relationship stays longer.
Could you say the first part again?
When you are good to your friend,
The relationship lasts longer.
right?
Why?
Because you make sure you don't hurt each other, or you don't use one as a means.
You're getting there. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, because reciprocal love.
Yeah, well, all the relationships are reciprocal. I mean, it's true that it's reciprocal in a different way. Let me ask this. If I'm in a relationship on utility, one day I need a coffee, the next day I don't. Or pleasure. One day I find this person attractive, but the next day I don't. So it's over.
Mhm.
If someone's doing good things to me or for me, if they're acting righteously for me, would I ever have a sane reason for wanting that to stop?
Please come again.
In this relationship, each complete friendship, each person treats the other with moral virtue. They act virtuously toward the other person. Is there any sane reason, if I were being treated that way by the other person and they were concerned with me for who I am, would I have any good reason to want that to stop?
No.
No.
No, it wouldn't make any sense. Because, like, my goodness, they treat me for who I am. They treat me righteously or with justice. They treat me well. Why would I ever want that to stop? So what's one reason why this relationship lasts so long? Because the things that each person is receiving is something that you can't possibly not want, right? At least, and at least on paper, we could imagine throwing some variables in there that would complicate it. But what does he mean when he says virtue is a stable thing? Virtue is an attribute or a disposition of your character to act correctly or to act excellently. And for Aristotle, virtue is the product of moral training that starts out when you're a child, a toddler, let's say, and develops till you're an adult. And it never really completely stops. That process of reward and punishment for your actions that shapes you morally. And why is virtue a stable thing? Because it's the result of years of training that are just called life. It's called living and experience, right? That gives you that training, right? So two virtuous people come together who have been trained for their whole lives that have ended up out of some luck a little bit, but also some work to be virtuous. And when they engage with one another, they're not going to be naturally inclined to change. They're not going to go from being a really good person to a really bad person. Except, of course, if we were to discover that they really weren't that good to begin with and we were deceived by them, right? But if we take it just on paper, that this really is a good person, they really are decent, Aristotle's argument is this person is going to remain that way. And if they're going to remain that way, they're going to keep treating us well, and we're going to treat them well, because you can only be in a complete friendship if you're virtuous. So therefore, since the people aren't going to change that much, what you're getting from the relationship is going to stay the same. And what you're getting is something that every human being would really want. So why would you ever not accept it? Right? So you can start to see why this relationship is going to endure. And of course, this relationship is really an ideal, right? In book 9, he starts to get to the problems of real world relationships that while it's ideal when the two people are alike in point of virtue, it turns out no real relationship involves two people who are, perfectly virtuous to begin with. They make mistakes. They have problems. They have challenges, right? And here he's giving you a kind of very simplified look at this relationship, like on paper, as opposed to like the mechanics of it in real life. All right. Ashley, you want to keep going? I can't remember where we left off here.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Was it to each person?
Each person sounds about right.
Okay. To each person, his own actions and those like them accord with his pleasure, and the actions of those who are good are the same or similar. It is with good reason that the sort of friendship is stable, since it combines itself all of those things that are ought to belong to friends. For every friendship exists on account of a good or a pleasure, either simply or for the person who loves and in accord with the likeness involved. And in this complete friendship, all that has spoken of its present, and the friends themselves, since in this respect the friends are alike and remaining reasons for forming friendship are present as well, both the good simply and the pleasant simply, and these things are lovable most of all. So it is among these people that both loving and friendship are especially prevalent and best.
Okay. And they're alike in what way? I'm just repeating myself here, but they're alike in what way?
Moral way or
Yeah, they're alike in what way? What's Aristotle's language? I'm not necessarily asking Ashley because she's reading. We've been talking about it the whole time. They're alike in what way?
They're like in their character.
Yeah, and their character is what kind of character?
It's a good character.
Yeah, they're virtuous, right? They're
Mhm.
alike in their virtue. What's another name for virtue? Human excellence, right? And what matters most to Aristotle? In terms of human beings and how they live?
To follow virtues.
Yeah, what they're alike in the thing that matters most. In, let's put it this way, in being an excellent human being. Okay, what is Aristotle's definition of happiness again for 500? What is Aristotle's definition of happiness? What do you have to do to achieve happiness? And it ain't win the lottery.
Living virtuously.
You have to live virtuously. This relationship involves two people living virtuously. What do these people do for each other? They perform virtuous deeds to and for each other. Now think about it. If I act virtuously toward another human being who I care about, that's actually Aristotle's definition of happiness, to live virtuously or to live in accord with virtue, right? So this is one reason why the other person doesn't have to do necessarily a good deed back to me, although they will because they're a good person, which is to say, when I act toward them in the right way, I am benefiting them by doing some righteous deed for them. But at the same time, that righteous deed in and of itself is Aristotle's definition of happiness. Does everybody see that? No?
say it one more time, Professor.
Okay. What do we do in this relationship? First of all, we are two people who are good and virtuous. And what do we actually do? We exchange deeds of virtue. We exchange virtuous deeds or acts toward one another that benefit one another.
Yes.
Simply by me acting virtuously toward you, without you doing anything in return, although you will do, I am fulfilling Aristotle's definition of happiness in this relationship. Happiness for Aristotle is living virtuously. This relationship consists of performing virtuous deeds toward another human being. Simply by doing that, I'm achieving Aristotle's concept of happiness. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Is this relationship going to be useful for us?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it gonna be pleasurable?
Yes.
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 So we'll start talking about the concept of why it's complete. But I think one basic reason why it is called complete friendship is because it really embodies all three forms of friendship, but includes these most important parts about one's character and the fact that you're being liked or loved for who you are in your good character, rather than just peripheral things that you can offer, right? It's obviously going to be pleasurable. It's obviously going to be useful. Why? Because this relationship helps facilitate or to realize your happiness as Aristotle understands it. What do you think these two people are going to do for each other in this relationship? What's the
Respect.
goal here, to put it in our own language?
To like completely fulfill the other person's needs, both of like body and soul.
Yeah, just about. I mean, I might put it slightly differently. I would say to help us to realize actually our own potential. If you think about Aristotle's concept of happiness, it's really about realizing our own potential as a human being, as Aristotle understands it. We have reason. It allows us to be virtuous morally and intellectually. And what are these friends going to do? They're going to help each other become, let's put it really simply, these two friends are going to help each other become the best people they can be, right? Because what is happiness? Essentially, it's becoming the best person you can be within the confines of Aristotle's conception of what an excellent human being is. Ashley, you want to keep going?
Yes. Yet friendships of this sort are likely to be rare, since people of this sort are few. Further, there is also need of the passage of time and the habits formed by living together. For as the
Adage,
adage
as the saying has it.
okay, has it, it is not possible for people to know each other until they have eaten together. Oh, sorry. The sake of it.
No, you got it. There we go. They have not eaten together the
The proverbial salt, nor it is possible before this occurs for them to accept each other to be friends until each appears to love each as lovable as it is trusted. Those who swiftly make proofs of friendship to each other wish to be friends, but are not such unless they are also lovable and know this about each other. For a wish for friendship arises swiftly, but friendship itself does not.
Okay, this is this amazing line by Aristotle. The wish for friendship arises swiftly, but friendship itself does not. True or false?
Professor, please come again.
He says our desire for friendship arises swiftly or quickly, but friendship itself does not. True or false? Last sentence there.
True.
True.
What's he saying? You put it in our language. What's he saying?
Yeah, it's like
Think
you
about the
can,
narrator of the money.
it's like you can meet someone and then you have a passion for the person right now, but as time goes on, maybe that person might not be a true friend. So perhaps
Okay, good. So you raise this issue of time. He talks about the proverbial salt and he talks about living together. What does he mean by sharing the proverbial salt? He's talking about eating together. And eating here is just a stand-in for spending time with each other. What is the key thing about time in relationship to the other person? Why does time matter?
Through time, you experience more, you learn more.
About what?
The other person.
Okay, this is really crucial. And actually, you kind of hit on two things. The more time you spend together, let's go back. The more time you spend together, there are habits formed by living together because of all the experiences you've had. The more time you spend with the other person, if you're lucky, the more time I think he's partly saying you have a common set of experiences now. And by having a common set of experiences, you start to grow together. You start to become more like one another because you're sharing the same world and also the same point of view. If you're lucky, right? But there's another element of time spent together beside just sharing the same experiences. There's the issue of the time it takes to know someone. And I think we all know that expression. What is it? Which way does it go? Knowing someone is loving them, or loving them is knowing them. Anyone heard one of those expressions?
Like, to know someone is to love them, kind
There
of.
you go. To know someone is to love them. What's the value of knowledge of the person, of the other person relative to your relationship? What Aristotle focuses on time. Why does he focuses on time? Because only through time can you really know someone. To the extent that you ever fully get, I mean, people are rather elusive, right? But time allows you to get to know them. Why is this knowledge important, or so important for Aristotle? Let me ask this. Do you think Aristotle believes that you can love someone you don't know, or don't know that well? Do you think Aristotle believes you can truly love someone that you don't know that well?
yeah, it's like no, if you don't know the person well, you cannot love.
Absolutely. Aristotle says you cannot love someone that you don't know. Why not? There's actually a simple answer here. I think we'd probably all even agree with it too. Why can't you love someone you don't know?
Because they're a stranger.
Once you don't know the person, you don't know which character, what type of.
I mean, we're not necessarily talking about someone who's a complete stranger. We're just talking about, think about when he talks about living together. I mean, he's really talking about a long period of time, right? There's obviously a big difference between people who've dated for so many months and they live separately versus people who have lived together for years or even decades, who wake up next to each other every morning and go through the day and go through all the trials and tribulations of all the challenges that come with life and relationships. So we're not necessarily talking about a stranger, but he's saying that it doesn't matter. It takes time to know anybody. Like, and he seems to think he's thinking in big periods of time here. Why can't you love someone you don't know?
Because you don't know actually what the person is.
Yeah, let's put it this way, because you don't actually know what you're loving. You may think you know, and this is something Aristotle gets into book 9. You may think you know that person, but if you haven't spent the time with them, your expression of feeling and commitment is to like a variable X that is still just a variable. It's not filled in with a value. And it's only through time that you really can discern who that person really is. Especially if you think about living with someone, you start to see them in all kinds of situations that you wouldn't have otherwise seen them in, that might change your opinion about them, right? You think about when relationships start and people go out on dates and all that stuff, all you ever get from them is the best side of them, right?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Of course, because that's the whole idea. They present their best self. But then when you're next to them and living in close quarters with them, or just, going through different situations that aren't, a date, or you don't just see them that one time a week or a couple times a week, you see them all the time, you're going to see all different facets of them that you never saw before. And I mean, in a sense, who that person is from your point of view is going to change, but actually what it is, it's just you didn't know them until you got to see all these sides. And then you can decide what your real relationship is. And so it cuts both ways. Knowing someone is loving them because you actually know what you're loving, you know what you're committed to, which you didn't know at first, you couldn't have known at first. But then it also cuts the other way, which is loving them is knowing them. Like, how do you even get to the point where you want to know that much about them, right? Like, I'm sure most of you don't want to know everything about everybody you're around. You're like, too much information. It's not for me. Keep it to yourself. I don't want to know about your private life, right? But the person you fall in love with, you care about them enough, or you're curious enough to actually want to know all those. Well, everybody has their own threshold with this, right? But you want to know things about them that about other people you really, no, thank you. Not for me. Okay. Let me finish up with just one thing here, and I'll try to do it as quickly as possible. Let me see if I can find where is my slide? It's no. Okay, here. Complete. What the heck does Aristotle mean by complete? I think he means two things. Number one, complete friendship is complete because it actually seems to encompass all the goods of all three relationships combined. So in a sense, complete includes pleasure and utility. And when you think about what complete friendship really is, that's not surprising. The other aspect of complete is literally in the sense that the relationship completes the two people. It helps to fulfill their nature. So the word that's translated in the text as complete comes from the Greek word telos. The telos is the goal of human life. it's the end, it's the destination. It's not the death. Like you start out at birth, you develop, you live rationally or in accord with virtue. And then the goal of life, what is the goal of life? The goal of life is to achieve your telos. What is the telos of human life? What is the goal of human life?
Happiness.
Yeah, don't think too hard. It's happiness. Here's the idea. When you have achieved happiness, you are complete, or you have completed your task as a human being in a sense, right? By definition, to achieve the goal is to complete the goal or to complete the task, right? What's another way of saying complete? To fulfill, right? How does he really conceive of happiness? Happiness is living virtuously. What he really means is realizing and fulfilling your own capacities as a human being to their fullest extent. And when you've done that, you've completed yourself as a human being, right? So the Greek word telos, meaning goal or end or purpose, it's the purpose of our lives, happiness, right? Teleon, which is one of the words used in this text, literally means completed or perfected, right? So when you've achieved happiness for Aristotle, you've perfected your own nature. You've taken its raw potentials and you've tried and succeeded in developing them to the fullest. Okay. What's another reason why this is called complete friendship? Because it is the friendship, it is the relationship in human life for Aristotle that allows you to fulfill happiness. It is by definition the relationship that's going to assist you in achieving your happiness, right? Remember what Aristotle said in book 1. He said to achieve, in order to achieve happiness, there are all these things you need. There are all these other types of goods that need to be in place in order to achieve happiness. You need to work hard, but you also need to have certain things, right? And one of the things he says is essential is friends, And here we mean complete friends or true friends. And it's really simple, actually. What are these friends going to do for you in complete friendship? They're going to, because they're good people, because they're decent people, they're going to help make you a better human being. And in being a better human being, you have completed your task as a human being to fulfill your own nature, which is just another way of saying of achieving your own happiness. Okay. We should stop right here. Luis, you said you wanted to chat briefly after class. Questions, comments?
Professor, I send you an email. Please follow up with that whenever you get time, okay?
I will get back to you, yes. All right, let me just finish the class with one more question, put you on the spot. What is exchanged in complete friendship?
Goods
You can't say goods because goods refer to any kind of
for
thing.
the good and
Goods is
pleasure.
good. Yeah, the good. And what does that mean more specifically?
Virtue.
And how do we exchange virtue? By doing what?
By doing good.
Yeah, and let me just put it this way, by performing virtuous deeds toward one another, right? Or acting virtuously toward one another. So what's exchanged? We might just put it simply, good deeds toward one another. And the good deed benefits the other person because it's a good deed. And the good deed also benefits us because it's the very definition for Aristotle of happiness. for Aristotle, happiness is living virtuously. That means doing the right thing. Okay. All right, if anybody happens to have any other questions before the due date, please get in touch and I will get back to you. Otherwise, have a great night and good luck on the exam.
Good night, Professor. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Professor, when are you gonna upload this recording?
Oh, hold on a second. I just want to, it's still recording.
Yeah.
Let me just stop. I can, let me turn this off. It takes a long time to, like, I guess it's download the recording, but I can
Okay.
have it up by tomorrow morning sometime.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a few things that I just wanted to review.
Okay. Okay, sure.
'Cause, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. It's still recording.